We got new champions out the ass, and I'm late. What is up? GoodMicWork back at you with a little bit of an abnormal commentary schedule this week. First of all, before we even get started, I want to apologize for not getting up here after the Elimination Chamber. I am always up here to review pay-per-views when they're done. I had told you guys all last week to expect to hear from me late Sunday night after the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, and I was all set to do a review, but a slight emergency came up at my work, and it required my personal attention. I actually had to be there. Nothing serious. It was just something I needed to be there in person for, and I knew by the time I got home I was not going to have the energy to stay up all night and do a review of the Elimination Chamber, so I had no idea what the hell to do. And as I was watching Raw tonight and the great show that we saw with some pretty big things take place and some nice surprises and a title change, I figured, what the hell, it'll be a little bit unbalanced, but I'll come up here and I'll talk about Raw, and I'll also give a brief review of the Elimination Chamber and my thoughts on that, and then maybe after Smackdown, maybe on Thursday, Wednesday night or something like that, maybe I'll come up here and give you another 15 or 20 minutes discussing what happened on the post-Elimination Chamber Smackdown and any WrestleMania matches we might have set on the Smackdown side of things. And we'll talk a little bit about that when I discuss Elimination Chamber as well. So it's a little bit weird to talk about a Smackdown pay-per-view and then discuss Raw and then come up later on and discuss Smackdown this week, but I guess that's the way we're going to have to do it. Also, I do want to apologize for the audio sounding a little bit different. This is one of those commentaries that I have to record in a different room of the house using a different microphone. Happens from time to time, so hopefully the different sounding audio will not throw you off. And hopefully by next week I'll be back to my normal schedule, coming up here late Wednesday, early Thursday to discuss Raw and Smackdown. So we're going to backtrack to Sunday first, and I'm going to discuss the Elimination Chamber. I got to say that this show was pretty good. I was not expecting it to be much because I thought on paper it really wasn't looking like that strong of a show. It could almost be considered a throwaway pay-per-view. I had a feeling it was going to be decent because we were all smelling a WWE title change, so we knew that would be cool. But the rest of it, I didn't really know what to expect. It seemed like a glorified Smackdown. But some of the matches on the show were really good, particularly the main event. What a great main event, great Elimination Chamber match with all six guys. They busted their asses in there. We did see a new WWE champion crowned, Bray Wyatt, which I thought was fucking great. I got to be honest, in the back of my mind, I wasn't sure if WWE was really going to do it, even though I felt like they would. I wasn't going to believe it until I saw it, basically. So really happy for Bray Wyatt. The match itself was pretty amazing. They have restructured the Elimination Chamber. Looks a little bit different. It actually just looks like a giant version of one of their toys, really, is what it looks like. It almost had like a game show type of feel to it. There was this crazy overhead camera shot that they had with the big circle in the middle, and then each pod was like lit up, and whenever they did the countdown, it would light up like fucking Wheel of Fortune or something, and the guy would come out. So it was a little bit more animated, I guess, than it has been in the past, and a lot of fans were given the chamber shit for padding the steel grating on the outside of the ring, which I had no problem with. I am not trying to see these guys kill themselves out there, and these crazy monstrosities that they build. The Hell in the Cell is brutal enough, and then this fucking thing. So for them to pad that, I really didn't have a big problem with it. Plus, there wasn't a whole lot of give in it. It still looked like it was a sick bump, just like taking a bump on the outside of the ring or on the floor or something. They're just landing on padded steel. So the fact that they added less risk to injury in this match is certainly not something that I'm going to complain about. But a lot of guys were taking bumps on that. I like the fact that John Cena and AJ Styles started the match. That was cool. I think Dean Ambrose came out next, followed by Baron Corbin, followed by Bray, followed by The Miz, I think was the order. Baron Corbin was the first one eliminated, and after he lost, he went completely apeshit and beat the hell out of Dean Ambrose, throwing him through the plexiglass of one of the pods, and then The Miz takes advantage of that, coming out of his pod right when the buzzer goes off and pinning a broken Dean Ambrose. So that could be your Intercontinental title match for WrestleMania. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I've already mentioned before in previous commentaries that I think this year they should go with a one-on-one match for the Intercontinental title. They've done that ladder match thing a couple years in a row, which I like. It gets a lot of guys involved, and I'm all for that, but at the same time, I'd like to see him take it old school every now and then and just do a one-on-one for the IC belt, and hell, have Dean Ambrose put Corbin over. Give Corbin the belt at WrestleMania. He won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal last year. Now he's going to win the Intercontinental title this year. If you want to push this guy, if you want him to be a major part of your roster and a future world title contender, to me, you got to put the belt on him if they do, in fact, wind up facing each other at WrestleMania for the title. Hopefully it won't be a multi-man kind of thing. I just hope this year it's one-on-one. The Miz, I think, got eliminated by John Cena, right? He got hit with the AA and pinned. And then Bray Wyatt surprisingly hit John Cena with the Sister Abigail and eliminated him. And the final two in the ring were AJ and Bray Wyatt. That's another match that I really think could be great on a big pay-per-view stage. And they put on a nice little performance there with eventually Bray Wyatt hitting AJ with the Sister Abigail and pinning him as well. And a great performance by Bray Wyatt. I cannot be happier for him. I mean, we thought this guy was world title material within his first year in the company. I'm surprised it actually took him this long. They didn't cheapen it by having John Cena get basically fucked out of the title by having to defend it against so many guys, and somebody interferes and kicks his ass and he has to fight back and he winds up losing. I mean, he just straight up lost right near the end of the match. He wasn't even the last guy in, which was even cooler. So Bray Wyatt not only hitting John Cena with his finisher and pinning him, but doing the same thing to AJ Styles, I thought was a great way to make Bray Wyatt's title win seem legit, because he actually kicked a ton of ass in there. It wasn't like he came in at the end and picked the bones clean, so to speak. He actually had to do some work, and he beat some top guys to get that belt. So I can't be happier for Bray Wyatt. So incredibly happy. I think this opens the doors wide open for all sorts of possibilities now on SmackDown. You got another world champion on your hands here. He's going to be a contender from this day forward, and I think you can do a lot of great things with him, and I'm assuming he's going to go on to WrestleMania now to face Randy Orton. The thing is, there's still like 6-7 weeks of SmackDowns left before WrestleMania, so you got to think that they're going to load up these SmackDowns to really hype WrestleMania, and we're going to see some title matches on these shows. I have no doubt we'll see John Cena get a WWE title match against Bray Wyatt on SmackDown leading up to Mania. AJ Styles will probably get the same thing. I still don't know how they're going to work AJ Styles into WrestleMania. I think he could be added possibly to the Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton match, and it could be a three-way, or if they're going to do the Shane McMahon thing, they still have to set that up on TV. So it still is yet to be determined where AJ stands, but I think after the year he had, AJ deserves to be in the title mix at WrestleMania, you would think. And if he's not, he needs to be in a high-profile match. So maybe that's why WWE is thinking of Shane McMahon versus AJ. But if there was a way to work him in to the world title situation, I certainly wouldn't complain. I think AJ Styles versus Bray Wyatt would be a great one-on-one match. I think AJ Styles versus Randy Orton would be a great one-on-one match. And I would love to see a program with any of those guys. So if you added AJ in and made it a three-way, I certainly wouldn't complain. But I'm pretty relieved that John Cena did, in fact, turn out to be a transitional champion. I was screaming that from the rooftops from the minute he won it. Luckily, I was saying that it was cool to see a lot of the wrestling fans lightening up on this guy, and the fact that they weren't so freaked out when he won the title, because they kind of had a feeling he was going to drop it. So I'm really happy to see WWE actually followed through with that and did it. And I think Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton really have a chance to shine here at WrestleMania. And for an early prediction, if that match is what we get at Mania, assuming Bray Wyatt survives title matches on SmackDown leading up to Mania, and he does face Randy Orton one-on-one, I got to think Randy Orton puts him over. I think that he should. I mean, Bray Wyatt has fallen short in every major feud he's had with a top star, with John Cena, with The Undertaker, with Roman Reigns. It would be nice to see him get one over here. Randy Orton at this stage of his career, what's the harm in him going into WrestleMania, having a kick-ass match with Bray Wyatt and losing, and having Bray Wyatt retain? I think Randy Orton is not going to diminish his stock. John Cena only held the belt for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I'd hate for Bray Wyatt to turn around and only hold it for 6 weeks, only to hand it off to somebody else. So I think Bray Wyatt needs to survive Mania. He can go on to have rematches with Randy. He can go on to face AJ Styles a bunch of times on pay-per-views. Bray Wyatt's got a long list of opponents that would be really fun to see him work with as a world champion in world championship programs. So I'm hoping that Bray Wyatt, this is just the tip of the iceberg of his run, and it lasts a little while. I mean, WWE, they need to give this guy a shot. You have to give him a chance to run with the ball. You can't just yank the belt off of him right after he wins it. Let's see what he can do. So congrats again to Bray Wyatt. Very happy for you and very happy for your whole family. I mean, that Wyndham and Rotunda family tree there is pretty full of a lot of great wrestlers, and now we have one that's a world champion. So congratulations to all of them, and I couldn't be happier. That wasn't the only title change we had at Elimination Chamber either. Naomi surprisingly won the SmackDown Women's title from Alexa Bliss. I did not see that coming. I'm happy that it happened, and I really liked the end when Naomi was being interviewed and the fans started chanting, "You deserve it," and she broke down in tears. That was a really touching moment. I think sometimes the "You deserve it" chants can get a little cliched, but sometimes they are really meaningful, and the fans really do mean it. And she got a little bit emotional about it. It was really cool and good to see for her. I'm happy. You know, I mean, the SmackDown ladies division, I don't think it's as strong as Raw's, but at the same time, they got some really good girls over there. I thought Alexa Bliss was going to run with the title for a little bit longer, but they gave it to Naomi, and I'm not going to be one to complain about that. She's definitely worked her ass off for it. She's been in the company a while, and everybody likes her. She's over with the fans, and it's nice to see WWE reward hard work. I mean, you got to think that's why they did it. Luckily, Naomi is over. It's not like nobody cares about her. The fans are into her, and they appreciate her, and WWE rewarded her hard work, and it's nice to see things like that still happen. So congratulations, Naomi, and best of luck to you in your title run. Randy Orton and Luke Harper tore the house down, didn't they? Jesus Christ, what a great match that was. That was a lot better than anything I've seen them do previously on SmackDown or whatever. So it was a real slobber knocker for sure. And a few scary moments in there, big bumps. I always get terrified when big guys like that perform superplexes. And when Randy Orton had Luke up there on the top rope, my heart skipped a beat. But they really completely just beat the snot out of each other in a really well put together match, and a great finish with Randy Orton countering Luke Harper's big clothesline and nailing him with an RKO that Luke sold the hell out of, and Orton gets the pin and the victory and the momentum rolling into WrestleMania to face the champion. So good for Randy Orton. For me, I just had a big smile on my face because of what a good match it turned out to be. We also had that really weird handicap match with Apollo Crews and Kalisto taking on Dolph Ziggler. I picked Crews and Kalisto to win. They actually did. Dolph Ziggler did pull a fast one. He attacked Kalisto during his entrance and threw him through the stage, Tron there or whatever, and kind of knocked Kalisto out of the match, and it was one-on-one with Dolph and Crews for a while until Kalisto finally came to and entered the match, and him and Crews were able to win. And then after the match, Dolph goes nuts with a chair again, and this time breaks both Apollo Crews' ankles, puts him in there Brian Pillman style, just like when Austin did it, and just stomped on both ankles, seemingly breaking them. So I guess it was a handicap match, and Dolph Ziggler made Apollo Crews handicap. So I guess he wins at the end of the day. But the whole thing was strange just because the fans are cheering for Ziggler when he's breaking the legs of Apollo Crews and throwing Kalisto through barricades and shit. The fans are chanting, "Thank you, Ziggler." So the WWE needs to get their shit together with this angle because it ain't making any sense. American Alpha also survived their big tag team turmoil match, and this thing was kind of weird. They get down to the end, and I think it's American Alpha and the Usos. American Alpha gets a quick win over them, roll up or something like that. They go completely ballistic, just like Dolph Ziggler did earlier on, and they just beat the complete piss out of American Alpha and leave them demolished in the ring with one team remaining to come out, which was the Ascension. We all saw the Ascension get that victory last week on SmackDown, so Twitter started blowing up. The fans were going nuts. Holy shit, this is it. They're going to win. They're going to win. And I'm thinking to myself, God damn, I really hope they don't. And lo and behold, American Alpha fights back. They recover. And they wind up defeating the Ascension after being essentially destroyed by the Usos, superseding their way to a victory in that match. And as a matter of fact, I want to send a big thank you to Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret for including one of my tweets in his Elimination Chamber review. If you haven't seen his stuff, I'm sure you guys have. Please check him out. He does awesome wrestling videos. And he put up my tweet in his Elimination Chamber review where I said, imagine if Roman did what American Alpha just did. The way they were booked like that, the way that match was set up for the Ascension to win, American Alpha is essentially destroyed and they still fight back and wind up winning that match. That's something that if Roman Reigns did it, the fans would freak out. That was kind of my point. It wasn't even intended to really start a debate. I understand that it's apples and oranges, but it is kind of funny how something like that is acceptable for someone who's over and it's not acceptable for someone who's not. But I didn't care. You know why? Because I like American Alpha, and I don't want to see the Ascension win. I don't like that tag team. I've never liked them. WWE has succeeded with me in their booking of them to where I just became disgusted. I had nothing against them in NXT. I had nothing against them when they came into the WWE. But the way WWE has treated them has just made me not give a shit about the Ascension at all, and I was happy to see them lose. So don't mistake that tweet for complaining that American Alpha won, because I certainly was not. But really cool of Brian to include me in that video. It was a nice shout out and a surprise. One of my listeners had to tell me about it on Twitter. I wasn't even aware of it, so very cool. The other two matches on the pay-per-view were ladies' matches. Mickie James and Becky Lynch opened up the show. Becky won that, which I predicted incorrectly. I think I had Mickie picking up the victory there. I thought they would have her win a few matches before she started putting girls over, but it looks like she might already be in that role. So she took the loss to Becky, and it was a pretty decent match, too, and a good one to kick off the show. All the matches on the Elimination Chamber were pretty solid. Natty and Nikki had their big grudge match, and this thing ended in a double countout, which kind of sucked. Nothing was really resolved there. Pretty brutal. The fans were a little bit quiet for this. The match had its moments, though. There were a few things in the match that I actually really liked. And then what was interesting is later on, after the match, they did a backstage interview with Nikki Bella where she was attacked by Natty again. And while they're fighting, they spill over into the makeup area, and Maurice happens to be there. And they end up spilling some powder on her or something like that. So just a small tease of that mixed tag match that's rumored to happen at WrestleMania with John Cena and Nikki taking on The Miz and Maurice. That was a small little seed planted there. Very subtle, but I noticed it right away. And I said on Twitter, I'm like, holy shit, there she is. It's actually going to happen. I mean, I really have been having a hard time wrapping my mind around John Cena being a 2-week champion and going into WrestleMania to be in a mid-card mixed tag match. You know, even though those are the rumors, it's hard for me to believe something like that. And now it looks like it's actually going to happen. And goddamn, I can't be happier. So that was the Elimination Chamber in a nutshell. We'll learn a lot more after Smackdown on Tuesday. And like I said, I'll come up here later this week and talk a little bit about that, especially if we get some matches announced for WrestleMania or maybe future title matches on Smackdown. But we'll have a lot more idea where they're going direction-wise with some of these matches after this week's episode. So expect to hear from me again later on this week. Let's move on to Raw now. This show started out so bad. I was just not even sure if I wanted to continue watching the show for the first 30 minutes to an hour of this thing. But boy, did it recover. Raw recovered nicely with a couple of really huge segments and matches. And why don't we start with the main event? I'm going to bounce around all over this show here because the main event saw Bayley win the Raw Women's Championship from Charlotte in a great match. This was so nice to see because I've been critical of Bayley. She has not been my favorite person in WWE. I really don't like her character. She's not as over on Raw as she was in NXT, I don't feel. And she hasn't really done anything to me that's made her look very good. She just looks like an imbecile sometimes. So I love seeing her in matches where she really gets mad. She really fights hard. You can see how truly bad she wants it. She is just a rough and tough girl with a huge heart and a great fighting spirit. And I was so happy with the way that match went on Monday Night Raw. It was the main event. A lot of people got involved too. Dana Brooke came down to help out Charlotte after Bayley kind of had her beat once or twice. And that prompted Sasha to come out. And Sasha and Charlotte had already had a backstage altercation earlier on. So you knew Sasha was probably going to have a presence in this thing. I was thinking maybe Sasha would turn heel or inadvertently cost Bayley the match or something like that. But Charlotte has Bayley in the figure 8. And Sasha comes down there with a crutch, beats the hell out of Dana Brooke with it, and then nails Charlotte while she has Bayley in the figure 8 when the referee isn't looking. And Bayley kind of recovers, gets up, nails her with the Bayley to belly, gets the pin, huge pop, new champion crowned, an amazing moment. Probably the best Bayley has looked since she's been on the main roster, in my opinion, and very happy for her. It's so funny how Charlotte now has lost that belt, 4 or 5 times on Monday Night Raw, but she's been so dominant on pay-per-views, so it looks like they're setting up Charlotte to win this thing back at Fastlane. You got to think that's going to be the match, Charlotte versus Bayley, and Charlotte is unbeatable on pay-per-views, so you got to think that Charlotte might take this thing back and still wind up heading into WrestleMania as champion. If history is any indication with what Charlotte did with Sasha last year, you got to think that might be what they're going to do, but let's worry about that when it gets here and appreciate the moment for Bayley. Really happy for her. She's definitely worked hard. She's definitely earned it. I know I've been critical of her character a little bit, but it doesn't change the fact that I think she's amazing, and she's a hell of a good worker, and she's earned everything she's gotten. So congrats, Bayley. I hope you do well with it, and I hope maybe your title run lasts longer than 3 weeks, but I guess we'll find out at Fastlane. The other major angle that took place on Raw was a really nice surprise and a pretty big swerve. They were in Vegas tonight, and Chris Jericho had set up this giant festival of friendship ceremony with him and Kevin Owens, and he brought all this shit out in the ring. He had a sculpture, he had a big painting of the two of them, and he had a magician out there, and he was wearing this ridiculous outfit, professing his love to Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens didn't seem into it at all. He was criticizing everything. He kind of had a frown on his face. And Jericho was going on and on. Kevin Owens was not having it. And finally, Jericho cuts a really heartfelt promo about what Kevin Owens' friendship has meant to him and how it's been the greatest year of his career. And he's never had more fun in the WWE than he has during his time with Kevin Owens. And then Kevin Owens says, wow, I didn't really know that it had that big of an effect on you. I'm so sorry. Give me a hug. You're my best friend. I love you. I've actually gotten a present for you too. And hands Jericho a present. And Jericho opens it up and he goes, wow, wow, it's a new list. I can really use this. Mine's kind of old and beat up now anyway, and it's getting full. Wow, thank you, Kevin. This means so much to me. And then he lifts it up, and it says the list of KO. And Jericho says, why am I on this list? And then Kevin Owens proceeds to beat the fuck out of him. And it was awesome. You could feel it like just about 3 seconds before Kevin Owens attacked, you knew it. And the fans kind of let out that big collective moan like, oh shit. And then it happened, and it was glorious. I mean, Jericho took a beating. It was wonderful to see. It was just a great segment because what started out as one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. You know, with Jericho out there in the hat, it looked like a really poor imitation of This Is Your Life, a segment that was also very weird and hokey, but for some reason did the biggest rating in the history of Monday Night Raw. I was there to see that show live in Greensboro, by the way. But what I thought was, this is something that's going to be really over the top and just be a little cheesy and dumb, and I'm not sure how I'm going to like it. And it turned into one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I mean, it was a really good, well-done turn by Kevin Owens, turning on his best friend. I guess Jericho's going to be a babyface now. I don't know if Jericho is necessarily going to cost Kevin Owens the match at Fastlane, because I mentioned last week that I think Goldberg needs to beat Kevin Owens. I don't want to see Goldberg lose prior to going into WrestleMania to face Brock. If he loses after or anything like that, I don't care. But right now, the way they're building him and Brock, he doesn't need to be losing. So I think he needs to win the title. But does Jericho necessarily need to come out there and cost Kevin Owens the belt to get revenge on Kevin Owens? If you look at the way Goldberg has been booked, this guy squashed Brock Lesnar. He shouldn't need any help to defeat Kevin Owens at Fastlane. He should be able to do this on his own. So I can't imagine a scenario where Kevin Owens has Goldberg beat and then Jericho interferes, costing him the belt. That would make Goldberg look weak, and that's not what you want heading into WrestleMania to face Brock. So I really don't see that scenario playing out. And given the fact that Owens gave Jericho a pretty severe beating, including throwing his head through the big TV screen, which is kind of karma, after Jericho did that to Shawn Michaels all those years ago, that was pretty cool. Maybe Jericho will actually stay off of TV until right before WrestleMania, selling these injuries. But as far as him being a factor in the title match with Goldberg and Owens, I don't think it's necessary, but they might actually do something like that. So we'll have to wait and see. But you knew that these two guys are going to have to break up, basically. So what I liked is the fact that the WWE did it early because it surprised us. I'm all about surprises, right? I talk about that all the time. So I wasn't expecting this. I thought this was something that was going to happen 2 to 4 weeks from now. But instead they did it tonight, and we didn't see it coming, and it made it all that much better. And pretty cool segment on Raw, and definitely helped make the show for me. Between that and Bayley winning the women's title, I mean, that made the entire 3 hours. No matter how much garbage we saw on the rest of it, those two moments made it worth it for me. The other big segment, if you can call it that, is what went down with Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman tonight. Roman came out to open the show. Well, actually, Stephanie did first. She was out there cutting a promo. I don't even remember what she said. Roman Reigns comes out there, says he wants Braun Strowman. She says no, books Strowman in a match with Mark Henry instead. And then Gallows and Anderson come out there for some reason and start talking shit to Roman Reigns, and Stephanie makes a 2-on-1 handicap match with Gallows and Anderson versus Roman to open the show. That match ends in a DQ. I think Gallows and Anderson got DQ'd. They beat the hell out of Roman after the match, rendering him less than 100%. And then later on, when Strowman has his match with Mark Henry, which he wins with a power slam, pretty impressive to see Braun Strowman have Mark Henry up like that. But Roman Reigns comes out to confront him. They start fighting. Roman hits a couple of Superman punches, I think, but eventually Strowman gets the better of him and hits him with a big running power slam and plants Roman 6 feet into the ring. So that match now is set for Fastlane, and I want to stand corrected on something. When I talked about this match before, leading to the build with Roman Reigns and The Undertaker, which I assume is still taking place at WrestleMania, I was kind of thinking that Braun Strowman was going to be thrown in front of Roman Reigns for him to plow over on his path to The Undertaker, much like I think Kevin Owens might be put in front of Goldberg on his path to Brock. But now I'm thinking they still got to set this match up with Roman Reigns, and a lot of you told me that The Undertaker will probably come out and maybe cost Roman Reigns the match versus Strowman, setting up their showdown at WrestleMania. That sounds much better because it gives Braun Strowman a victory. It's not going to harm Roman Reigns any because he's about to go into WrestleMania to defeat The Undertaker, so he can definitely afford some losses, which is why we might be seeing Roman Reigns get these losses lately. He lost at the Royal Rumble, then he lost in the Royal Rumble match. He could lose at Fastlane to Braun Strowman, giving Braun a big victory over a top star, potentially the top star, if he goes on to WrestleMania to beat The Undertaker. Undertaker, and then maybe faces Brock at SummerSlam for the Universal title. So Strowman getting a victory over him on a pay-per-view could be big for Strowman, so that could be what they are doing, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Undertaker makes an appearance at Fastlane and costs Roman the match, and that sets up your big showdown at Mania between Roman and Taker. My opinion still stays the same. That needs to be it for the Undertaker. As far as I'm concerned, I think he needs to retire before it's too late, and putting over a guy like Roman Reigns on his way out, I think can give you the best value for your retirement. Oh, I'm sorry, there was one other big major angle that took place on Raw tonight too that I haven't talked about yet, and that was, of course, the debut of Emmalina. They finally announced last week that she's going to debut this week, and you knew they were going to do something. You knew they were going to fuck with us. You knew they weren't just going to have her come out and have a match with her new gimmick or whatever. So she actually does come out. She comes out to the stage with a microphone. She's dressed in a beautiful dress or evening gown or something like that. And then she says, "You all have witnessed the makeover and transformation of Emma into Emmalina for the last 17 weeks. Now I'm going to show you the transformation of Emmalina back into Emma." So now I guess we're going to get 17 weeks of promos of her devolving back into Emma to where she's eventually just wearing the plain spandex sports bra top and bottom where she's doing that funny dance thing with her hands. I guess that's what she's going to do next. And then she'll come out and say she's going to evolve into something else. Whatever. The thing is silly and stupid, and who cares? Raw's 3 fucking hours long. At least if they give us something to talk about, it's a lot better than the New Day shoving bananas up their asses or something. We had Sami Zayn getting a big one-on-one victory over Rusev tonight, and he cut a post-match interview where he talked a little bit about Samoa Joe, who also did a sit-down interview with Michael Cole earlier on in the night, which was really good. I mean, Samoa Joe, he's a main event player, I'm telling you. Maybe after we get through WrestleMania, you got to think about giving this guy a title program at some point. I mean, you know what's going to happen. This guy is fucking money, money, money. Really good promo from Samoa Joe. And Sami Zayn took offense to some of the things he had to say, and he kind of called out Samoa Joe. Joe came out and kicked the complete shit out of Sami Zayn on the entranceway, still wearing a suit from the interview. And I guess that's going to be your match at Fastlane, since Seth Rollins obviously can't go. It'll be Samoa Joe versus Sami Zayn. I think I pitched that match for WrestleMania, didn't I? Didn't I talk about those two guys facing each other a couple of weeks ago, and I pitched the whole match for WrestleMania as just a good, solid undercard match to have. I think the whole thing with Seth Rollins is still up in the air. We did see Triple H tonight. He arrived with Samoa Joe, and he even talked to Kevin Owens backstage, approached him and Chris Jericho, and took Kevin Owens away. It was probably Triple H that had a lot of influence on Kevin Owens doing what he did to Chris Jericho. Maybe he doesn't need Chris Jericho's help to beat Goldberg. Maybe he needs Triple H's. So that's another big possibility there too. If they are going to have Kevin Owens escape the match with Bill Goldberg somehow with the title, maybe Triple H can have something to do with that. Maybe even Samoa Joe can have something to do with that. Who knows? Other than that, not much else to mention about Raw. I'm not even going to bother. You guys saw the other 2 cruiserweight matches that took place, and we had Cesaro beating Enzo, and I think that was almost it. I might be missing a match here or there, but those were the main points of Raw. I thought it was very good, like I said, for the show to start so slow, and for me literally being really close to turning it off. It was really nice to see how well they recovered. Teddy Long is the next inductee into the Hall of Fame. They announced that, I think, earlier on in the day, maybe on Twitter or WWE.com, but they also talked about it on Monday Night Raw as well. So he is in with Kurt Angle and the Rock and Roll Express, so pretty solid class. And by the way, that opening promo by Stephanie where she said playa and holla, I would prefer her never fucking do that again. And before I sign off here, I do want to acknowledge the unfortunate passing of Chavo Guerrero Sr., great wrestling legend with an amazing wrestling family. This, of course, is Chavo's father and Eddie Guerrero's brother. Chavo Classic, he was even on WWE TV in the last 10 years or so. I don't remember when that was, when he was out there with Chavo, but he was a hell of a wrestler in his day. If you've never seen footage of him work when he was young, check him out because he represents the family name well. You can definitely tell that he's a Guerrero, and very sad to hear of his passing. The Guerreros are beloved by all of us wrestling fans. We absolutely adore that wrestling family, so my heart and thoughts are with them tonight. You have my condolences and my utmost respect and never-ending love going out to the Guerrero family. So that is it for me tonight. Like I said, I'll probably be up here in just a couple of days. Check back on Thursday. I'll come up and say a few words on Smackdown, and then next week I'll get a little bit back to normal with my commentary schedule and be up here for a big Raw and Smackdown joint review like I usually do every week. And I will make sure that I'm up here for Fastlane after that pay-per-view this time around for a reaction, and then we're going to have a really busy WrestleMania season season. I'm going to try to be up here after the Hall of Fame, after NXT TakeOver, after Mania, after Monday Night Raw, after SmackDown. It's going to be a big WrestleMania weekend and should be a lot of fun in the next several weeks leading up to that. So you guys take care. Leave me all your thoughts on the Elimination Chamber, Monday Night Raw, Bray Wyatt, Bayley, and Naomi all becoming new champions, and any other thoughts you might have on Fastlane or WrestleMania. And I'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Until next time, peace.